Hello, my name is Maria Joliker. Welcome to my show, Let's Talk About History. Today I have a special guest with me, and his name is Damien, historian Damien Cregeau. Damien and I have been associated with each other through the Daughters of the American Revolution. And first I'd like to read a quote from All Things Liberty about author Damien Cregeau. He has a BA degree in history from Hillsdale College, an MA in history from Hillsdale College, Massachusetts.
Colorado State University.
Colorado State University. He has published articles pertaining to the American Revolution with the Journal of the American Revolution, American Spirit, as well as the Financial History magazine. A scholar of the American Revolution, specializing in the espionage operations of the era, Damien has lectured on espionage and Alexander Hamilton at the FBI's New York office, the Frauners Tavern Museum, and the SUNY Maritime College. So I'd like to know if you have any interesting stories about espionage during the Revolutionary War that you can share with us.
Sure, Maria. Thanks for having me on.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining me today.
First time what'll probably be many, right? So,
that'd be nice.
There are so many different stories. Obviously here in Connecticut we talk about Nathan Hale. And Nathan Hale was hanged by the British September 22nd. And I would say pertinent to this area, my first of two stories that are quick, would be that the Connecticut Society of Sons of the American Revolution happened to own a Nathan Hale schoolhouse in downtown New London, right across from the train station there in the City Plaza. And we operated as a public museum, and that's really something that we're proud of as a 501c3, nonprofit, patriotic organization. But there's more to it than Nathan Hale. Nathan Hale is typically the name that people hear all the time. I think the other thing that people think of is the Culper Spy Ring, and a lot of people saw the TV series Turn 10 years ago. Maybe it's been longer than that by now. But it was very popular, and the problem is I have to debunk a lot of the myths. That's one of my jobs. Is I'm always asked about that TV show by all walks of life. People like yourself, children, FBI agents of all types. So what I have to explain to people is there's myths out there, and where I came into becoming interested in the Culper Spy Ring in the American Revolution was that Colonel Benjamin Talmadge, at the time a captain and then a major, was operating out of my hometown of Fairfield, Connecticut, down on Long Island Sound. And the ring would operate between New York City, Setauket, Long Island, Fairfield, Connecticut, and then over into Westchester County. Well, when you grow up in Fairfield and you find out that the ring couriers had to row back and forth all across Long Island Sound, I said, what's the route? And for your modern day viewers, they'll appreciate this, it's the Port Jefferson Ferry route. So people here in southeastern Connecticut are more familiar with the ferries that operate out of New London, like Orient Point. This one is the one that operates regularly, and there are 3 ferries. It's a heavy rotation and an expensive ride because it carries cars. And you're going between Bridgeport and Port Jefferson. And that is basically the same route, because right next to Bridgeport, on the Bridgeport-Fairfield line, is Brewster Cove, named for Caleb Brewster, who was the courier, and he would sail or row into the cove by his house, by the shore.
Oh, and he would have materials for spying that he would share with American soldiers, that if he knew about British, give them leads as to what the British were going to be doing?
So specifically, it was information coming from New York City from undercover agents, as what we would call them nowadays. So there were 2 spies operating, one regularly out of Setauket, and one full-time in New York City at what is now South Street Seaport near the Brooklyn Bridge.
Oh, okay.
So that agent would take the information. His name was Robert Townsend, for those of you who want to go on the internet. Robert Townsend would take the information he had overheard or seen or read in some cases and send that by courier, usually a person on horseback, from New York City, who would go across all the way to Setauket, Long Island. That took some time, but once it got to Setauket, Abraham Woodhull there would then make sure it was sent by boat through Caleb Brewster on his whaleboat. The tricky part was to make sure the information was fresh, that it hadn't expired, and also that no one got caught. And that's how the use of invisible ink came into play for George Washington and this culprit ring.
Yeah.
It was an effective spy ring, but one of the problems was that Talmadge had almost been intercepted a couple times, and they said, we better begin using invisible ink. And I wrote an article about that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, a year ago, last Thanksgiving.
On what website? Was that your website?
No.
Where did you?
Military History Quarterly. It was the first time I was published by them.
Okay.
Prominent military history magazine. Military History Quarterly is the kind of thing you used to be able to run into a bookstore and buy on a magazine rack. But they went digital a year ago, and I was part of their first digital edition. And it's called something along the lines of George Washington's Spies and the Use of Invisible Ink. And it's a fascinating story, and of course there's a lot of Connecticut history involved in it.
Yeah, I like the History Channel on Channel 35, and I watched that quite a bit, but they were talking about that, I think, the invisible ink. You should be on that show sometime.
I probably will be someday. I've been on
Because
TV.
you have so much information in that brain of yours
Right.
on, American Revolutionary period. You'd be a good guest for them.
Well, thank you.
You
And
could give them a lot of information.
I used to work in radio, so I have I've done
you have a
voice
voice
narrations.
for radio.
Well, one of the things I did, and shameless plug, and it's a nonprofit, so I can mention it. It was the Financial History Museum on Wall Street. They had me do the voice of the narrator, and then Regan Miner here in Norwich asked me to be the voice of the narrator for the Benedict Arnold Trail. So I have experience doing it, and there's some things in the works, some projects, not with Norwich specifically, but Vietnam War.
Busy.
I have a lot
busy.
going on. Yeah,
Yeah, good for
I'm in the
you.
process of writing 2 books right now. We'll get to that later.
Yeah, but first I want to talk about your website. Thank you for sharing that with me about the espionage. You have a website, and I had a picture of it. There's a picture. This picture is on your website.
Yes.
And
Happy to explain.
you were talking about. Okay, go ahead.
Well, your watchers, your audience are going to like this because it's very local to the Norwich area history in southeastern Connecticut. And that is, I'm elated to say that I am the proud owner, along with my wife Pam, of the house of the person who's depicted there in that miniature painting.
Oh.
I'm holding an original painted by John Trumbull. He was an Army colonel in the American Revolution, and he was from Lebanon, right up the road, and part of the scope of your show here. And he painted his brother-in-law, the famous Brigadier General Jedediah Huntington, not as famous or infamous, of course, as Norwich's own Benedict Arnold. But the great thing about Jedediah Huntington is that he was also a general from Norwich, also a great patriot, but he's never going to switch sides. He's never telling secrets to the enemy. So instead of being a traitor, he's a loyal patriot who serves George Washington right to the end of the war and beyond. He actually winds up being customs collector in the Port of New London in 1790, and then goes all the way to, I think he retires around 1814 or so. And he has a house down there.
It's been difficult to travel back and forth.
He didn't have to.
He would
So
stay there
he sells the house here in Norwich Town to his younger brother, probably for $1 or some gentleman's agreement. His younger brother is Ebenezer Huntington. So if your audience were to go online, say Wikipedia, or just go on the internet and browse, it's General Jedediah Huntington House, but it's also General Ebenezer's house, General Ebenezer Huntington, the 2 half-brothers.
Ebenezer.
And that's why the monument out in front of our house has 2 brothers' names on it, and that monument's 100 years old. Yeah.
I like that name, Ebenezer. Think of Ebenezer Scrooge, the Christmas Carol. It's one of my favorite shows.
Sure, and it's probably, I would imagine, I'd never
Plays.
heard, I'm going to guess they're two Old Testament names. The third brother was named Zechariah.
Wow.
And we just passed Halloween, but you think of the burying ground a mile from here, here in Norwichtown, and that burying ground has a unique quality for being a unique spot in the United States for having all these Huntington generals and colonels buried together.
Yeah. You don't hear that name too often anymore, Ebenezer.
No, you don't.
No. People don't name their children Ebenezer too much anymore. Okay, I have another question. The second question is that you received a history award from National DAR.
Mm-hmm.
And that's quite a prestigious award. It's a history award. And here you are with your award, and Christy Hendry was the Connecticut State Regent at the time. Can you tell me about that, how you were chosen for that award?
Well, thanks for being a good spy and finding that in the Internet archives.
Yeah, on Facebook.
It's great. Social media websites and search browsers are so good. And
yeah, that's quite an award.
my joke is, when it comes to being a spy, I have an unusual name, so once you know how to spell my name, I'm easy to find. I can't hide.
Yeah.
So that award was awarded to me. Technically, the National Society and Christie had coordinated that I would be honored, and then when COVID broke out, they shut down how it would be presented publicly. So we waited an extra year
COVID, yeah.
because of the COVID pandemic, and so it wasn't until a year later that we were able to do a smaller event, and that's at the Hartford's Town and County Club up in Hartford. It's a women's club.
Nice.
And
Looks like an old an old home.
Right, given the women's history in DAR, they said, well, let's present it there
Yeah.
as a nice little black tie dinner.
Yeah.
So it was a wonderful event, beautiful venue, and I'm already forgetting. I think it was 2022 they finally gave it to me. It was wonderful. I thank everyone. That's Jackie Fenelon on the right. She was the chair of the committee that reviews an applicant like myself. And it's a pretty big deal, as you say, because I had to have 3 published author friends of mine write recommendations in order for me to receive the award.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. It's wonderful. It's a huge honor. And
Yes.
I love being recognized. The criteria for it was you had to spend a significant portion of your time as a professional historian on early America, that it had to be pre-Civil War. And that is what I spend 80% of my time on as a military historian.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, it's fascinating. Okay, and another question is, well, you are a member of the SAR, Sons of, excuse me, Sons of the American Revolution.
Right.
And are you the state president of the SAR, or you were at one time?
I was, and it was during COVID. I was president from 2018 to 2021.
Okay.
So the challenge was, we operate 3 public access, nonprofit museums as educational programming spaces.
One is in Lebanon.
Yep, we have the Trumbull War Office on Lebanon Green, Governor Jonathan Trumbull Sr., and who was the colonial and revolutionary patriot governor. That's the War Office. That was kind of like, I joke, that's his man cave. And then the 2 Nathan Hale schoolhouses, the aforementioned one down in New London. Then the one that's in Essex, East Haddam rather, is up on the hill above the Goodspeed Opera House in that whole historic district area, up on a hill.
Oh, Haddam.
In East Haddam.
East Haddam.
Yeah, you cross the swing bridge
Yeah.
to get to it from Route 9. So we operate those 3 museums. So in my time, my tenure, I accomplished a lot. The main thing I accomplished was the 240th anniversary of the burning of Fairfield by Governor Tryon. Everyone around here thinks of General Benedict Arnold, the traitor, burning New London and attacking Fort Griswold, and that's huge. That's the Alamo of the American Revolution, if you will. But I would also say the burning of Fairfield was extremely traumatic. And a lot of people don't know about it unless they're from Fairfield, like myself. And that's what got me interested in history, was that in the 1970s, as a little kid, I'm growing up during the bicentennial, and they reenacted the burning of Fairfield. Thankfully, they weren't burning down houses, but they were burning hay bales and doing other simulations.
It really left an impact.
Right, and so that was
inspired you.
That was 1779. So 1979, I'm a little kid, and then if we fast forward to 2019, during my presidency, I made sure that we did a public event there.
1979.
1979 was the bicentennial of the burning of Fairfield.
Oh.
Right. I'm not talking about July 4th.
No.
This is
Independence Day.
This is the summer of 79. Now, if you fast forward a year or two, we did a bunch of ceremonies, and one of the recent ones we did of local interest, because the 250th anniversary is coming up quickly, and in a sense it's already started.
250th, yes.
Anniversary of the American Revolution.
You're going to be involved in that, I'm sure.
Very busy. We have a bunch of projects. I just got asked to be on the advisory council for the Connecticut Museum of Culture, formerly known as the Connecticut Historical Society. It's up in Hartford.
Wow.
And, obviously there's a 250th anniversary planning committee here in Norwich. They're busy. And then our General Society, the National Society of the Sons of the American Revolution, we are going to be hosting Congress, our National Congress, national meetings, at Mohegan Sun's Earth Tower in July, next July of 2025. So we kick off the 250th as an organization, we feel, by doing it here for the first time. We, in Connecticut, are hosting for the first time since 1967. So we're overdue. It's been 55 plus years. And the other thing I would mention is that it's going to be the first time that we're doing something that is at a Native American property, reservation, as opposed to just some, banquet facility.
Colonial green.
Right.
Or colonial house.
Well, we do it all over the country. No, we do them all at massive.
But it's the first time in Indian.
We usually do them at conference centers. The kind you see in New York City or Albany or Boston. And the last one in New England was in Boston in 2013.
You mind me asking who one of your Patriot ancestors is?
Sure. Fun question. So the Patriot that I joined on is Private Abraham Cregeau of New York, but the one
it's a French name, isn't it?
Right. But the one I'm going to talk about actually for a minute is.
So he was French?
That's why I'm not going to talk about him, because he wasn't.
Yeah, okay.
The one I want to talk about is local. Richard Lyman. Richard Lyman from Lebanon.
Yeah.
He was a sergeant in the Continental Army, which is a prominent rank for a Continental Army soldier, in the sense that he wasn't just a private. He was a sergeant, and also his role was important. He's not only a sergeant, he is the orderly sergeant, meaning kind of like a bodyguard or messenger for the famous Major General Israel Putnam, the legendary general from Eastern Connecticut. So
he was right from this area.
Yep, growing up in Lebanon, he signs up. He is responding to Lexington and Concord in April of 1775, but he doesn't actually get there. Connecticut is slow in getting to the scene,
Was
of course.
Was he in the Continental Army?
He was, and that's why he was the aide, well, not aide, but kind of like an aide, a non-commissioned officer equivalent of an aide to General Putnam, who's also Continental Army. So we're not militia now. So he's in the Continental Army mid-war. We estimate 1777 to 1779, and we know it basically through the pension application for his widow in the 1830s. They had moved to Vermont. He had already died after they arrived in Vermont, and so she's receiving this in her elder years.
Oh, wow. So did she go there by herself or with her family?
No, I was saying how he and the two of them as a couple.
Yeah, were going up
and
there,
probably an adult child.
He died before.
He dies up in somewhere in northeastern Vermont, not far from Woodstock, Vermont.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, or White River Junction would be a better
That's
reference.
Fascinating. When I hear of the true stories like that, I think you can just picture in your mind, it's romantic, the trees and the traveling and the rural atmosphere. It was a hard life, though, and
oh yeah,
I think of what a great movie that would be.
and I would love to do that. The thing I like to remind people is many more soldiers in American history died of disease than gunshots or bayonets or what have you. Yeah. Battlefield wounds are what people remember, but disease at places like Valley Forge or here in Reading, Connecticut, with these winter encampments, that killed more. Yeah. And the same can be said for the Civil War. It's not just the American Revolution.
Yeah, they really did sacrifice for a cause.
Definitely, and
they believed in their cause.
We're coming up on Veterans. To your point, we're coming up on Veterans Day, which is a nice link to mention. Yeah. So,
I forgot to turn my phone off.
Did you want me in the?
No, I'm just wondering what activities do you do in the SAR now? I mean, do you hold a position in the SAR? I mean,
I'm on the board of managers because I'm a past state president. All state presidents, former state presidents, serve in an ex officio, if that's the right way to put it, capacity. So we are always.
Where do you hold your meetings?
We move them around.
Okay.
An example would be the Nathan Hale Schoolhouse, the Trumbull War Office in Lebanon.
Yeah. If people wanted, if there are, men who, might have an ancestor who served in the Revolutionary War, where could they contact? Who could they contact?
Sure, it's a great question.
Get involved in the SAR.
I think we'll have my email address up at the end of this show.
Okay.
And you can email me. That's a good start.
All right.
And then I'll connect you to the right person.
Okay. Thank you. That's nice.
Sure.
Okay, so the fourth question I want to ask Damien is about his books. You do like to write books, informative books. And the first book that I'd like to talk to you about is Kevin the Turkey. Can you talk to me about Kevin the Turkey?
Well, knowing that you were going to ask me, I brought a copy so I could show it. Mm-hmm. And my wife and I self-published this. I had worked for a private or independent bookstore 20 years ago when I was in graduate school. And I thought this would be great for me to take those skills and market this idea. And the idea was that this turkey, the historical fact here, this is historically relevant, it's a true story. Kevin was a wild turkey who wandered into the town of Wethersfield, the colonial town founded in the 1630s, but a very fun, active, vibrant, historic district in Old Wethersfield to this day. We have restaurants and all kinds of commercial stuff there. He wandered into town. He created a huge traffic jam starting in the summer of 2017. And so I thought it was really interesting that he kind of took the town by storm. He kind of became the unofficial mascot of the town in the summer and fall of 2017. That being said, not only was he causing traffic jams, which means delays for people to get to work, fire trucks were trying to get to accidents on Interstate 91 or local houses. They realized an even more dangerous thing was he almost got hit by a snowplow. We had an early snowstorm in around just before Thanksgiving of 2017. So they swept him up and took him in a van and brought him to a state forest in Barkhamsted, which is, for those of you from around here, that is eastern, Litchfield County, basically due west of West Hartford and Farmington, up in the woods. And people began to miss Kevin. A couple memorials had gone up around town. And you can imagine, think at the end of, not quite as busy as the intersection at the end of Route 2 at Bacchus Hospital, but pretty close. And so there was no light there, but it was where everyone congregated with their cars, trucks, bikes, and in this case, postal trucks. And he became famous for pecking at the tires and the wheels of the post office trucks because they were white and shiny.
Yeah.
So my wife and I said, let's write a book about him because the kids and their parents miss him. And we did, and it's been flying off the shelves ever since we published it. We sold 1,000 copies the first 10 weeks it was on sale in 2019. That's when we released it, right before COVID. Then COVID came along, and that obviously put a hold on it temporarily. But oh my goodness, this year, I mean, I just sold 10 books yesterday at an event.
So it's mainly a children's book,
Yes,
right?
it's designed for ages 4 to 7.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
But my wife's a good psychologist, so she said, I know how I can make it interesting for the parents, because Timmy or Jennifer or whatever is going to say, Mommy or Daddy, can you read that again? And you want to make it so that the parents can tolerate reading it 3 times in a row. So there's nice life lessons in it, and we turned the bird into an inspiring character. Like what did we learn from Kevin that we wouldn't have thought of? Like being patient.
Yeah, so Thanksgiving in 3 weeks maybe, you have children, grandchildren, find the book on the shelf for your children. You could read it to them.
Yeah, you can contact me by email if you're interested.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, and another book that you have out, or is coming out, I'm not sure, is about patriots. And one patriot in particular that you talk about is Jonathan Trumbull, or John?
Sure. So I'll kind of give the outline of the book and then and list the 6.
He's right from Lebanon.
So they are, the title of the book tentatively, it'll be published probably in the summer of 2025. It's probably, but we're not sure, going to be called Profiles of Patriots. And it will be Colonel John Trumbull, the famous painter. It's his childhood home that is the national renowned house that is owned by your Connecticut DAR, the Daughters of the American Revolution.
Yeah.
A lot of people think it's the Governor Trumbull house, and it is, but they actually, the National Park Service recognizes it more as Colonel John Trumbull's birthplace. That's the official designation for it. That being said, the painter's father was a prominent governor, of course, the only governor to serve before, during, and after the American Revolution as a governor of a state. My book is about Colonel John Trumbull, the painter, and 5 fellow patriots in the Revolution, including from Norwich, Jedediah Huntington and Ebenezer Huntington.
Wow.
Now, to make it confusing, the Trumbull family decided, let's just give everyone the same name. So for those of you who are aware, some of the current pop people who in pop culture keep naming, there's one person, I can't think of who it is, and it's not for this format, but it's like 5 children all with the exact same name, and they just have numbers for middle names. I'm not talking that, but Jonathan Trumbull Sr. has not only John Trumbull as a son, but he and his wife Faith also have a daughter named Faith. So there's a Faith Sr. and Jr. of sorts.
Yeah.
But Jonathan Sr. has Governor Jonathan Trumbull Jr. So a lot of people, even famous authors, get them confused. And I have a family.
The painter Jonathan Trumbull. He was John. Okay.
See?
He was born in Lebanon.
Yes.
At the Trumbull house.
Right.
He, as a child, he fell on the stairway.
Yes.
And he hurt his eye.
Yes.
And he became the painter of the Revolutionary War.
It's an inspiring story.
And his paintings are in the Rotunda in Washington, D.C. They hang there today.
Yes.
So he became very famous for his painting.
And that's why I wanted to do the book, is people don't realize we have such a famous person who lived here locally in his early life and returned to visit. And
when you go to Washington, D.C. and in the Rotunda.
There you go.
And you see those are his paintings right there, the 4 paintings.
Exactly.
He's from Lebanon, Connecticut.
That's right. So
and it's really an awesome experience. I visited there when I was about 11, and with my family. And when I walked in, it was just, for an 11-year-old or 12-year-old, see them. It was majestic.
Yes.
To walk in there.
Oh yeah, the scale of it is beautiful. He even tried to be the architect for that space, but the paintings were part of the deal. He would have those on the wall. One more thing I wanted to just squeeze in before we wrap up is the popularity of Alexander Hamilton as another patriot who John Trumbull painted. If you look at your $10 bill, the $10 bill portrait is done by John Trumbull.
Oh, wow.
So,
so I'll be interested to see, your book when it comes out in 2025 about the patriots from this area.
if all goes well, about 9 months from now. That's the tentative plan.
Another thing I want to bring up is that he was on C-SPAN. Damien was, and he has a video, a C-SPAN video that you can find. If you Google it or browse.
Yep.
And
you can go on any internet browser, and if you just type in my name and C-SPAN, it'll come up.
Yeah.
I think it was 2018 I did it. It was down in New Jersey at what's called the Dye Mansion. And that's a historic house, museum, like we have with the Leffingwell here. And it's where George Washington had spent a lot of time with Alexander Hamilton during a winter. I think it was 1780. So they asked me to speak on Alexander Hamilton, his military career, and C-SPAN got wind of this and said, because of the popularity of the musical, could we record you? I said, absolutely. So they had 2 cameras, and I will tell you that the technology they were using was the hot lamps. So I'm on there, and you can watch me sweat under the hot lamps. They switched to LED right after, you might know. But it's a 1-hour presentation. I don't do the financial side, financial history, even though I could. I let my colleagues do that, other Hamilton scholar peers of mine. I specialize in the military history of Alexander Hamilton, so you can watch me if you link to me on Facebook or friend me on Facebook or something. Periodically I'll do things on.
I happen to look quickly at the one website. I have to close pretty soon, but the one website where you have articles, you have written articles, and it's very interesting. That's a different website, isn't it?
Thanks for reminding me and bringing that up. So it's allthingsliberty.com is the website.
Okay, yeah.
It's the formal title is the Journal of the American Revolution. We authors call it JAR. And through JAR, or All Things Liberty, it's published here in the Northeast. They do a bound volume at the end of the year, but it's a website, and you can go on there, and there's new articles almost every day. And I've been published 10 times.
Yeah. Well, listen, Damien, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a real pleasure and very interesting and fascinating.
Thank you, Maria. Thanks for having me on. The first of many, again, I hope.
Yes, I hope so. And I hope everyone has a happy and safe Thanksgiving holiday. Thank you.